Welcome back to Simply Satisfied, everybody. I am your host, Greg, and tonight I am joined by my guest, Michael. He's been on a wild journey, self mastery since really young age of 9. He started with meditation, biofeedback, and ever since then he's never looked back. He's a licensed therapist, he's a master coach with SealFit's Unbeatable Mind, and he's a director of human resilience. He also spent over 2 decades in national policy, which we will probably get into, working on everything from cyber threats to civil liberties. He always blends deep mindset work with real world grit, which is something I love, and I'm really hyped to dive into it with him. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg, appreciate you having me on, man. I enjoyed our pre-conversation. I'm looking forward to this conversation too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Michael and I, we probably talked for, I don't know, a long time.
we did.
It's supposed to be like 20 minutes. We ended up talking for almost an hour, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Michael, tell me a little bit about your backstory, kind of what led you to where you're at today. You know, you've been on this journey since you were 9.
Yeah.
If you want to go all the way back to then, we can start there.
So I blame, in a funny way, my journey on my therapist, Mrs. Pat Lawson. But let me share a little bit of a story prior to Mrs. Lawson. I was 1979. I'm an older dude. Previous to that, I had some learning disabilities, some challenges in school, and also had some health issues. I was in the hospital for a month, ... But, both the school challenges and health challenges caused some internal conflicts within me. And I became a hair puller. It's an obsessive compulsive disorder. And my mom took me to see a psychiatrist, which is kind of typical, 1979. But what's atypical is how the session ended. So we do the first full session. And at the end of the session, I turn to my mom and I say, he's fat and he smokes. He can't help himself. How can he help me? And I left.
Dang.
He was fat and he smoked, but it's really effing obnoxious for a 9-year-old to say that about a psychiatrist, right?
Yeah.
But fortunately, my mom supported me. She's like, she could hear in me that was not a good fit for me. Thank God, because 1979, the psychiatrist would put me on drugs, and I would have had a whole different path than the one I ended up on. So she found me Mrs. Pat Lawson, a psychotherapist, no drugs. And Mrs. Lawson was a biofeedback expert. She taught me biofeedback. You can imagine 1979 is not the high-tech world we live in today.
Yeah.
The excitement was like an old computer, and you connect the device to your hands and galvanic skin response. And if you relax, the balloon rises. And if you're stressed out, the balloon falls. So I learned to use biofeedback. She taught me guided imagery. She taught me meditation. She got me into the martial arts. That literally set the stage for a whole different path in life than if I would have been on medication from the psychiatrist. So I'm thankful for her because I've really enjoyed the path I've been on, at least since 1979.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, for everybody listening, what is biofeedback?
So there are different kind of technologies out there, but the basic idea is that your body produces signals. So you can think heart rate. You can measure your heart rate. Or if you have some of the devices, heart rate variability. Or if you've seen like the Muse device that goes over your forehead, it can read brainwave activities. Your skin produces temperature shifts. All of it is affected by your stress levels. So back then, but today, there are devices that measure certain physiological functions. Like it can measure your breathing, your heart rate variability, your brainwave activities, and it shows you what's happening in your own system. And by showing you what's happening in your system and you manage it, let's say you do some deep breathing to relax the system, you notice shifts going on. So you're getting immediate biofeedback or biological feedback so you can make adjustments. And you learn through that process to manage your own nervous system, basically. So you can calm your system down. If you're over aroused, you can get it more aroused. If you're under aroused, there's various things you can do, based on these techniques that you learn through the biofeedback technology.
Awesome. And so you took biofeedback, meditation, martial arts, all of this. You were introduced kind of all of it at the age of 9. And where did it go from there?
Yes. All of it was an eternal private interest. I read my first 3 books, age 9, I bought for myself, were Zen Mind, No Mind by Daisaku Suzuki, Zen and the Martial Arts, and a book on yoga. So just a deep interest in psychology, spirituality. I'd call it like self-mastery, self-development now, but back then it was kind of like new agey human development.
Everyone
stuff.
was looking at you like you were crazy.
Yes, pretty much so. Like the books were like, this is kind of weird for a kid. However, I could say I balanced those things out because I used to read Mac Bolan, Able Team, and Phoenix Force, which is about mercenaries and
Okay.
I'm in disguise and fighting the mafia. So I also had the normal kind of kid stuff, like ninjas and army guys, and along
Yeah.
with all the personal development stuff. So it was always an interest of mine, and it just expanded and expanded. However, it didn't become a professional interest in mine until I was in the middle of an MBA program. I did my undergraduate work in government. I had an interest in psychospirituality, nutrition, health, and well-being, but also I lived in DC Metro. So all of our neighbors were with the agency or the FBI or military or contractors. So I was deeply interested in world affairs and what's going on and national security. And because it's always part of the conversation, even when I was a little kid. So I was getting an MBA because that's what I was told to get. It was a popular thing in the 80s. I don't know how popular it is now. Probably not popular at all, like it was. But either you become a lawyer or you get an MBA. That's
Yeah.
what you do. Like, I don't want to be a lawyer. Get the MBA. But I was in the middle of the MBA program, and a dear friend of mine since elementary kindergarten was murdered.
Dang.
Yeah. He got into a bar fight. He got into a lot of fights. He always won every fight, but this time he didn't win. The fight went out to the parking lot. The guy went to his car, got a gun, and killed my friend Tracy. And that was just like a shock to the system. Like, holy shit! Like, it makes you pause. Like, ooh, like, how am I living my life? What am I doing? Am I doing what I really want to do?
Yeah.
And then a month later, teacher of mine committed suicide in the MBA program. So it was just like a double whammy. Like, holy shit! So like, there's a term called the dark night of the soul, and that was kind of like my dark night of the soul. And I did a lot of soul searching. I was like, I have no interest in the MBA program. I have no interest in business. Like, I was doing fine. I had like 3.65 average. So it's not like I was doing poorly, but I'm like, what I really like is all the psychology stuff, spirituality and health and wellness and all that stuff, performance. So like, that's what I really want to go do. And fortunately, my parents were very supportive, and I pivoted, went out west to California, and my graduate work was in transpersonal counseling psychology, and which I can share with you what that's about. Got licensed in the state of California as a marriage and family therapist. And then I did postgraduate studies in somatic or body psychology.
Yeah. So you kind of went down this path, and then you veered a little bit to go for this MBA, because I feel like you did what most people do, and I did it too, where everyone was kind of telling you like, oh, you got to go do this. You got to be a lawyer. You got to get an MBA. You got to go to school. You got to do all this stuff. And then you got hit with that wave, right?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big wave.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it course corrected me. Like, because at the time, the reason I was doing the MBA, because I was going to go work for the government,
Mm-hmm.
law enforcement or intelligence. That's kind of the plan. Because I had the private interest in all the personal development stuff and the public interest in like government, national security. So that's where I was heading. And actually, I did an interview in the government. One of the guys who interviewed me, family friend, said, "Oh, go get your MBA. Where you can come into the government at a higher position than you would have right out of college." So that's why I was doing that. But the unfortunate murder of my friend and suicide of my teacher, like, just,
Yeah.
like I said, what do you really want to do? And I still was interested in the national security stuff, and I ended up going back there, which we could talk about later. But I was like, what I'm really, really interested in is the psychospirituality and health and wellness and performance type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it course corrected you, got you back on the psychology, the philosophy,
All that.
all of that, all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And do you ever look back on it and you're like, your defining moment might have been that?
I would say there's a few defining moments, and that was definitely one of them. Yeah,
Okay.
because I was heading off to work for the government. That was, I would finish my MBA, I'd go interview. I wasn't stupid, so I'd get the job, and that sort of whole career inside the federal workforce. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, a career, you were looking at a career with the government, right? Was that kind of the comfortable option?
So that's a really good question. So I would say I had two, and I still do. Like, I have so many interests. I have people say attention deficit disorders. Like I have attention, like expansive disorder. I'm interested in
Yeah.
lots. So the interest in law enforcement and intelligence was completely legitimate. I still retain it because I can talk to you about becoming a personal protection specialist and a PI and all the trainings I did and national security work at the policy level. So I did get back into that space just with a different hat. So that was legit. And then all my inner work that I was interested in that I've already started talking about, that was legitimate too. So either course could have been right for me.
Mhm.
It'd been interesting if I had done the government course, what would have happened to the more private interest of personal development? I probably would have still been into that personally, but it just wouldn't have been my profession unless those two could be married. And I had some thoughts on that, but ultimately they were separated.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so now you're a therapist
I am.
and you're a coach
I am.
and
Almost
you
30 years.
what's that?
Almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. Wow.
Yeah.
And so now you're helping other people.
Yeah. I would say I'm paying Pat Lawson forward, Mrs. Lawson, my therapist. I'm doing what she helped me to do with other people. Now I'm coaching now. I don't do therapy, but I believe I'm helping people just in a different capacity than a therapist might.
Yeah. So, but in all your years of coaching and your years of therapy, being a therapist, what when you go to help people, and obviously it's case by case, not every scenario, it's not cookie cutter and everything. But what are some of the biggest things that stick out that people need to work?
So it's great question. I would say it's four things that I've noticed as general patterns, but not specific to any person. That's not necessarily universal. I've not done work with every single person in the world. Um, Inability or lack of ability to self-regulate. And what I mean by that is like they they have emotions, but they don't know how to manage their emotions. They have their thoughts, but they don't know how to manage their thoughts. So, the kind of popular word is someone gets activated or triggered, and their defense system gets activated, and whatever they do, because some people will get aggressive when they get scared, or feel attacked upon, or insecure, whatever it is. Some people withdraw. People have different coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
But what I find is like people have a real hard time managing themselves in the middle of that. So I do a lot of work with couples, for instance. And let's just say, the husband says something to the wife, she gets triggered, she gets really upset, he gets triggered because she's upset, and they just spin out of control. Well, if either one or both of them could manage themselves, and what I mean by that is like, I'm getting triggered, like, all this stuff is arising in my system. Like I'm getting emotional, I'm getting angry, I'm getting frustrated, I'm getting scared, whatever the feelings are. Here's the thoughts that are coming in. My heartbeat's getting faster. I'm clenching my teeth, whatever the thing is. If I'm aware of how I do those things, interdict so that they don't control me. I'm aware of them, but they don't control me, and I can make better decisions. I don't have to act aggressively. I don't have to withdraw and hide for
Yeah.
3 or 4 days and not talk to my partner. Like, I can sit in the middle of the fire because I can regulate myself and engage in the conversation with my partner. So self-regulation is a piece of that. But in order to self-regulate, healing needs to also take place too. Like, what are the wounds that cause the need to learn how to regulate oneself differently?
Yeah.
And we all have different ones, from in utero experiences to early childhood to our first marriage, or, whatever the things are that kind of created patterns in our nervous system and how we react to the world. A lot of that needs to be healed. So you want to, so one of the things is like, how do we heal some of these wounds? How do we learn to regulate ourselves is another one too. And I'll say the third and fourth thing, the third thing might be something like, how do we evolve our consciousness? Like, how do we become more emotionally intelligent? How to have more mental or cognitive flexibility or complexity of our thought? How to become more morally expansive? Like, there are various lines of development you can look at, and like, how do we evolve in all those lines to become more expansive in our capacity to engaging with the world? And then the fourth one is like, how do we actually talk to other human beings? It's like, even if I'm healed, even if I'm able to regulate, doesn't mean I know how to engage another human being differently than I was taught in my family of origin.
Yeah.
Now, if we add in all the defense mechanisms, it makes communication with another human being even harder because we have all this stuff going on inside of our system. So like when I work with couples, it's like, how do we talk to each other? How are we aware of what's happening in our own body, our own system? How do we share with another human being? And how do we hold the space for another human being who wants to share with us without getting offended or defended or whatever it happens to be? We aren't taught to do that stuff. So I'd say like as a universal, for universal, is like that is a piece of it too. Like how do we actually engage in an intimate, caring, loving way with another human being?
Yeah, that's pretty important. Like those four things, just I know it's not cookie cutter or universal, but
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of is because, like you said, we're not taught those things.
Well, yeah, and it's to different degrees. So some people might be a little bit more emotionally intelligent than others. Some might have more cognitive capacity than others. Some people might be a little bit more morally advanced than others. Some people might have more capacity of self-regulation and resources, but various degrees. So I would say, yeah, you're right. Like all those things play some role in almost everyone. Just to the degree might be different depending on their who they are in their history.
Now, are those? Do they have an order? Do they go in order, or can you kind of bounce?
Oh, there's even a different one that I'll add. I'm going to add a fifth thing, which is actually the first one.
Okay.
So when I work with individuals, and even when I work with couples, but I'll stick with my individuals, I have four pillars in my program:
Okay.
logical, psychological, social, and environmental. The physiological is literally the first thing I work with clients on, and that is sleep. Are you sleeping? No, let's get you sleeping, because if you're not sleeping, you feel like crap. You feel like crap, a whole bunch of other behaviors are out of whack. Are you exercising? Exercise is really important. Are you moving? I make a distinction between movement and exercise. Like exercises, like I do barre, I do kung fu, I do CrossFit, I do SEAL fit. Movement is like, are you in front of your computer for 6, 7, 8, 12 hours a day? Well, maybe you need to get up every 2 hours and move around. That's just
Yeah.
basic movement stuff, you know. And then I look at diet and nutrition. What you consume has effects on your physiology and your psychology. Let's look what you eat, what you drink, the drugs you take, over the counter, prescription, recreational, dietary supplements, herbs, vitamins, minerals, all that stuff, peptides these days, whatever the things are, all the liquid consumption, food, all that stuff we look at. And then circadian biology, like the day-night cycles. Huberman has made it really popular to wake up and watch the sunrise and watch the sunset. But that's been known for a long time in some circles, and that's really important because we have a lot of artificial exogenous chemicals and other things which disrupt our circadian biology. We can stay up all night long because we have computers and artificial lights, we have caffeine, nicotine, all kinds of stuff, which is great for some people sometimes as tools, not great if you're trying to live optimized as a human being. Like you really do need your sleep. And if you burn the candle at both ends, you're not going to have a candle left. So like we need to live within a 24-hour day-night cycle as much as possible. Everyone's unique, so it's different for every human being. And then stress management, like how do you actually deal with your stress? So I would say the first thing I work with everyone on is the physiological stuff, because if you feel like crap, the psychological shifts are more difficult to make.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So you
thanks.
start with physiological,
Yeah.
and you move on to the psychological.
Yeah, psychological is like cognitive, how we think about our thinking, the language you use, the tone in our own heads, how we talk to ourselves, talk to other people. Emotions, like how we experience or allow certain emotions, how we repress others, how we manage them, and how we healthily or unhealthily express certain emotions. Somatics, how we live inside of our body, our breath, our posture, our muscle tone. Energetics, from a more of a Chinese medical perspective, like the energetic system of the body or the chakras if you're thinking yogic system. Spirituality, part of spirituality for me, I don't tell people what to believe, but I find out what they believe and I support them in their beliefs. Part of that too is like, what values do you espouse and do you actually live them? So we explore that as well. If you claim one set of values, but I'm watching your life and you're completely not doing that, then I'd question, like, are those values really important? Or maybe we need to look at your behaviors to align them with your values.
Yeah. And then explain the difference between social and environmental.
Yeah. So in the social space, I'm very curious about people's relationships with other human beings. So like if I'm working with, let's just say a husband, he's married. Well, I'll say, well, actually, it's easier to say I'm working with a wife because seemingly a lot more women are involved in human potential and growth than the men are. And I'm working with the wife, and I find out from her that the husband does not like her on the growth path. Like, and he kind of either directly says something to her, but most likely not, more passive aggressive. But he's like trying to cut her off the knees. Why? Because he's insecure. I'm no judgment, like, but he's afraid of losing her because she's growing and he's not. So I'm like, that's interesting. Like, let's have a conversation with him to bring him into the system so he can feel comfortable with your growth, and maybe he can get on the growth path too, whatever that means for him, and you both can grow together.
Yeah.
So there's not that fear involved. Look at your family system. I'm trained as a marriage and family therapist. So I'm always looking at the family. Like, how do you relate to your kids? It's great if you're a high performer and you want to become an elite performer. That's why I work with a lot of high performers who want to become elite performers. Awesome. But do your kids talk to you? Do you talk to your kids? Do your kids like you? Like, let's look at those kind of relationships because they're important. It's important that you set a good example for your kids, have a nice connection with your wife or your husband, if you're depending who you are. Look at your work. Like, how do you show up at work? What are the relationships like at work? What are your relationships like with friends? Do you have a team that might support you? Like a physical trainer? You don't? I have one. Will Ravello, my physical trainer. You want to hire someone? Hire him. Do you need a functional medicine doctor? Do you need an epigenetics coach? Like, there's a lot of different people that are part of my team that I can bring forward to work with you. And if you have your own team, I will talk to your psychiatrist. I'll talk to your therapist. I'll talk to your naturopathic doctor, your Chinese medicine doctor, whomever it is that would be appropriate. So we're all on the same page, moving you in the right direction.
Yeah.
I think systemically, what your social ecologies, groups that you're part of. That's the social piece.
Okay. And then the environmental?
Yeah. So that's two different ways to think about the environment. One is we look at your home, transportation, and office. Sometimes the office is at home. And we ask the question, is the space conducive to the person you want to become?
Mm-hmm.
Or does it detract from the person you want to become? And I'll give you two fun examples. You said to me, hey, Michael, and this is not you because you look like you're in great shape. You're like, man, I'm 35 pounds overweight. I'm 28% body fat. I'm just not working well. Okay, let's work on the mindset around your food consumption, your sleep, all the factors that might contribute to your overweight and metabolically disordered. Cool. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I know enough to ask the questions and send you to the specialist to ask, to make sure you don't have a medical condition. And I can also ask questions like, show me your desk. You're like, you're my desk. You're like, what do you mean, Mike? I was like, show me your desk. And Greg, you're like, you turn your camera over and show me your desk. I'm like, and there's a bowl of M&Ms on your desk.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, maybe you might want to have the snacks, the M&Ms, the Ho-Hos, the Twinkies, whatever your thing, the Doritos, like there. So you're not trying not to eat something. Like, so via negativity, what do we need to remove from your environment that might detract from you becoming healthier, happier, more productive, whatever your goals are. Okay. So that's one thing. That's part of the environmental piece. The via positiva is like, what do we need to add to your environment? And this is my favorite story. So I have two, but I'll share one right now. So I had a client training for Kokoro Camp, SEALFIT's Kokoro Camp. It's not off to Hell Week. It's 50 hours instead of 5 full days. It's for civilians, not for Navy Special Warfare guys. Okay, cool. And it's I work for Mark Devine at SEALFIT. I've done Kokoro. I've coached for Kokoro. So I had a client who's actually training out for Kokoro. And the PSTs, you got to do a certain amount of push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and run a certain period of time in order to pass to even get into the Kokoro Camp system. I'm into the Kokoro Camp. Cool. He was having a hard time with pull-ups. And I'm like, okay, get a pull-up bar and put it in your home office. Every time you walk underneath that door, you got to do pull-ups. Every time you go take a crap, every time you walk your dogs, you have dogs. Every time you go have breakfast, lunch, every time you walk underneath that, which is multiple times a day, you got to do pull-ups. So by the end of any one day, he's doing 20 extra pull-ups because he kept walking underneath. So within a month, he had his pull-ups nailed because he was doing them every day, not at the gym, but literally walking underneath. You have to do a couple pull-ups every time. That's adding something to your environment to support your behavior. In this case, upper body strength, so you can do the pull-ups. That's a piece of the environment, and I'll give you the other side of it. See if you have any questions on the first part, though.
Yeah, I mean, no questions at all. I agree with everything you're saying because I've done the same thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Environmental design to support health and well-being. The other side of it too is like, okay, is what you use in your home or your office conducive to actual health? Meaning, the cleaning supplies you use, if you're a female, the makeup you use, the if you're a guy, maybe hair products or
Yeah.
whatever humans use, are they neurotoxic and carcinogenic potentially? Well, maybe you shouldn't use those things because it's fascinating. Like I work with clients and they're like, man, I'm eating really well. I'm sleeping really well. I'm exercising. I'm like, this is great. You're putting all that crap on your skin. It gets absorbed and you're like, you might as well eat crap. Like you're just consuming it differently. Oh, wow. Shit. Okay. Well, maybe I need to rethink my cleaning supplies or my deodorants or my gels, whatever the things are. I just have people start thinking.
Mhm.
I can stop there. Have people thinking. Do these contribute to their health and well-being, or are they possibly detracting from their health and well-being? And they make better decisions in the market.
Yeah. That's interesting. For like the skincare or the hair care, or for us guys with beards, the beard care. What are you looking for? And I put like beard oil and beard balm, but like, what are you looking for? Is it specific brands that are neurotoxic, or is it
Well, so
specific items?
yeah. So what I would recommend people do is look at the ingredients,
Hmm.
and then Dr. Google the ingredients and find out if there's any research to support to oppose their use.
Okay.
Like this particular chemical being used as maybe preservative or an additive or coloring agent has been shown to be neurotoxic. Oh, well, maybe you don't want to use that in your facial stuff because it absorbs through your skin. As an example, I mean, you got to do your research. But these days, there's like apps that kind of tell you something
Yeah.
about these products, what's in them, what's healthier ones. Things that are more oriented towards organic, but even organic, you got to be careful of because an ingredient says organic doesn't mean the whole product is organic. So you got marketers are brilliant,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, consumers are not well educated. So you just got to be really mindful and do your research.
Okay. And what
Yeah.
is your opinion on, especially with like the hair care and skincare and everything? What is your opinion on totally like no shampoo, conditioner, no skincare, no any?
Well, it's interesting you bring this up because I literally was having a conversation with a medical doctor a couple of days ago when I was in Canada. We were talking about this offline, and I'm going to have a continued conversation with her because I was like, what? And she's into natural approaches to everything because the conversation was, we have a microbiome, the gut flora the gut flora in our gut. Yeah, right. The microbiome. But we also have it in our skin, in our hair, in our scalp, in our mouth. Like it's literally all over the place. And a lot of things we use destroy those things or detrimental to those things. Like some of the food we eat will destroy the good bacteria in your gut, as an example, or some things we consume. But I asked her questions about our hair care and our facial soaps and our all the stuff. I don't have an exact answer yet because we're going to continue the conversation, but I really was curious about that
Yeah.
because I have to imagine there are some products out there that are better than others or even might be good for you in terms of hair care and facial care and beard care and oral care. So I don't want to make a blanket statement. You should never use anything or you should use everything. I don't know yet. I just encourage my people to ask lots of questions and do their research and experiment.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't always practice it, but I'm a big fan as much as possible to try and be all natural. Uh, I don't like using a lot of shampoo, hair conditioner. I don't like using a lot of that beard stuff. I get really dry skin, so sometimes I kind of have to. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
you know exactly what I'm talking about with the beard. Really, really dry skin. In the goatee area, and it's just like
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
sometimes you have to, or else it gets so bad you just don't know what else to do about it. But
I
I've seen videos of like people on the internet. Like this one guy was a surfer, so he's in the ocean all the time. But he made a video and was like, "Oh, I stopped using shampoo, I stopped using conditioner, I stopped using toothpaste, I stopped using stuff for my beard." He's like, and for a while he stopped using deodorant too. He's like, for a while I stunk and I had greasy hair and everything, and but eventually, like I think it took like a month and a half or 2 months. He's like, eventually all my natural oils came back out and everything, and he's like, now my hair is healthier than ever. My teeth
nice.
are whiter than ever. Uh,
Nice.
he's like, my dentist even says they're healthy. He's like, I don't have BO, and I was like, wait a minute, like, and his whole thing was like, oh, all this stuff is poisoning our bodies, and you don't really need it. And I was like, that's a really weird like experiment. But he also lived on a beach for all, he didn't have to go to an office. He didn't have to be around, certain people, and so
So, two comments on that. I would say like there's a few words that describe my work with clients, and one was experimentation. Like I don't know what's going to work for you. You need to find out what works for you. So let's try this thing, whatever this thing is, for a day, a week, a month, a year, and see what it works. If it works for you, it might not work for you now. It might work for you a year from now. It might work for you today. It might not work for you in a year from now. But let's like life should be one big experiment. Let's try new things all
Yeah.
the time. And I think there might be some truth. Let's consider this: like, do you really need deodorant and hair care products, all the stuff? Like, Madison Avenue does a really good job of making us feel like crap about ourselves, and that we stink or we're stupid or not, we're ugly, whatever the thing is, make us insecure. That if you use their product, you'll feel a lot better about yourself. So you got to ask, wow, do I really need the product, or am I just using it because there's a social convention promoted by Madison Avenue that if I don't, then I'll stink or I won't look as good. I won't have the right clothes or whatever it is, like the things are. So I think it could be a fun experiment, both to try not using some of those things and see what happens, but also try to think of like, what's the propaganda being pushed upon us?
Yeah.
Why people want to sell us stuff, which is marketing. That's just fine. But like, how much are we being propagandized versus we actually need these things?
Yeah. Which plays into what you mentioned earlier with like fear. People fear being embarrassed or smelling bad, being embarrassed because you smell bad, or, being rejected because your hair doesn't look great or whatever it is. And on the opposite side of fear is kind of that you talk a lot about the universal, right? And you deal with a lot of couples. So on the opposite side of fear is love, correct?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so how you work with people psychologically after you work on the physiological, you go to psychological. How do you help people that have a lot of fears embrace more love in their life?
Man, I love that. Okay. That's a great question. Because like if you just said, how do I help people through fear? That's almost a different conversation than work through fear so they can feel more loving. So I was trained in somatic psychology or body psychology, and the father of the movement is Wilhelm Reich. And he talked about armor. And it's not just a metaphor. It's literally like if we learn to armor up against feeling and connection with other human beings. It's a defense mechanism. And it's literally armor. Like the fascia and the muscle get tight. Like if you ever been in a fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you just feel the tightness, like, or you feel scared or insecure, like you have physiological changes in the fascia and the muscle and in organs too, but we'll just stick with the fascia and the muscle. And it's intended to protect you, because if you're contracted, like here in the chest,
Yeah.
you're not breathing fully. If you're not breathing fully, you're not feeling fully. So it's a way to protect you against feeling too much feelings, because they're overwhelming. Especially if you're 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years old and you're dealing with a big dude called your father or a big woman called your mother, and it's effing scary because they control your life, literally life or death, at least in your mind. So like you armor up against feeling things, which also means you armor up against feeling feelings of love. So when I work with individuals within a couple, I work with them on how to deconstruct that armor. Literally, how to deconstruct the physical armor, the fascia, and the muscles. Because if they don't, then they're going to protect themselves, understandably so, because life can be scary and there are things to protect yourself from, against feeling love for themselves and another human being. So you start deconstructing that armor slowly and giving them inner resources necessary so they can feel more fully,
Yeah.
and learn to healthily express that love to another human being. It takes time, because it takes time to deconstruct the armor and get conscious control over the muscles and the fascia, so you don't have to armor up against and be reactive to whatever the situation is with your partner. And it's not just, and I started with the body, the fascia and the muscles. It's also the mindset too. What's the conversation in your head? Oh, she's a effing, or he's a, whatever the things are in our head that we just go to immediately. We got to rewire the brain. So you kind of, you heal the body, relax the body, you remove the armor in a slow way. You also have to change the mindset to how you think about your partner, how you think about yourself and your partnership. And I literally just did this today. Me to we. I work with couples and, tit for tat. I'm right. He's wrong. She's right. He's wrong. Like, and they go back and forth. I'm like, imagine if your paradigm was not, you have to prove yourself right to your partner and prove them wrong to you. It's like, it's us two of us, two is one. against the challenge. Like we come together and we face the challenge, whatever the challenge is. Even if it's one of us is the challenge, but we come together to face the challenge. We objectify it out here and we
Yeah.
learn to deal with it as a couple, from me to we. Doesn't mean you abandon yourself. Doesn't mean you don't have any sovereignty. Of course, you have sovereignty. Doesn't mean, that you're codependent. You're an independent human being. Cool. And when you're from that place of more security, it's two is one of facing the problem. And that's a mindset, as opposed to like, oh, I'm going to prove her wrong and I'm right. She's an F and whatever. Da, 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 da. Like, wow, I love this woman. I love this man. And I'm going to show up in such a way that shows him or her how much I care, love, and how much caring I have for them, how much compassion I have for them, how much empathy I have for them, how much I really want them to grow and develop and learn and all this stuff. Completely different mindset than that person's an F and F whatever thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to prove
Okay.
them wrong. Like, completely
Yeah.
different mindset. So you got to work on the mindset to be more loving, to work through the fear that allows you to be more loving, and work through the body set too, the nervous system and the muscle system.
So be more loving, me to we. But in general, what does love have to do with personal development and self-improvement?
Dude, man, you got some good questions. So, man, that's a great question. So, yeah, man, many different ways in. I could say if you really love yourself, then you're driven to be a better version of yourself. That's where the self-improvement, self-care, even self-development stuff comes in. Because you're like, man, I really want the best for me. What do I need to be a better man, a better woman, a better father, a better husband, better son, whatever the relationship role might be, to be more self-mastered, manage my nervous system a little better, heal my parts or my wounds, evolve my conscious, be more emotionally intelligent or complexity in thought or more moral, like love yourself and you're going to want to do that for yourself. You love another, you're going to want to do that for yourself for another because you really want to show up as a man to your wife if you're a heterosexual couple. You want to be a strong man for your wife. Cool. Well, it's not something you say to yourself. I mean, it is, but it's not just a concept. You actually have to do the work. There's because you love her, you want to show up for her as a provider, a protector, all the P's that, men, procreator, like all the things that the roles men can play, but revisioned in the 21st century because we're not fighting tigers and bears in Oman anymore. But, yeah, like love for self or love for another can be fuel for the fire for your own growth and development.
Okay. I love that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So love is the fuel, fear is the opposite.
Yeah, actually, if you're going to use fuel, kind of use the analogy is like, you take the oxygen out of the room, boom, that's the fear.
Yeah.
It's like the fire builds brighter and 10,000 suns and, really brightened up the day versus like, I just lost all my air and I'm going to die because I'm in fear.
So when you were going through your journey, right?
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest mindset shifts you had to go through?
So let me share with you SEALFIT. So when I was 39, my wife at the time asked me, what do you want to do for your 40th birthday? The joke was she probably thought I was going to say, let's go to the islands and do stupid shit in the islands, in the Caribbean. And I was like, I want to go train with the Navy SEALs. Okay. So I found a program. It was a program for young men who wanted to go to Navy Special Warfare. It was a pre-BUDS training program. It was 3 weeks, ended up closer to 4 weeks. You live with Commander Mark Devine at SEALFIT in San Diego. You train with the SEAL cadre and other subject matter experts, 12, 14 hours a day, 3 to 4 weeks. And you finish it off with what's called Kokoro Camp, which means indomitable spirit. And it's modeled after Hell Week. It's 50 hours instead of 5 full days. There's no sleep. You just train. You go from the ocean to the beach, to the grinder, to the mountains, back to the grinder, to the mountains, to the beach. You back and forth. They feed you, but you don't sleep. You're just one evolution to the other. So I did that. I trained up for it for 9 months. I had the best 9 months ever. I had a SEAL, Dan Cirillo, may he rest in peace. He died a couple years ago. He trained me up, like he programmed me for the 9 months. I had my friend Otis Berry, who was a former Army Special Forces guy. I literally trained with him in person. So Dan created a program for me. I did every day. Otis, 3 days a week, I'd go see him and train 3 or 4 hours a day. And I say it's the best time because literally my work at the time allowed me the time to train 3 or 4 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. Like I literally did that for months and months and months. I did get injured in the middle of it and I had to take a month off, which kind of sucked. But I learned so much training so hard in preparation to hang out with young men, 20, 21, 22-year-old, if you want to go Navy Special Warfare. And I lived with these guys for 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, all of them become SEALs. One's actually retiring soon, which is so crazy. It's so long ago. He's now retiring. But like, these were amazing young men. I just learned so much being around them. I was the old dude, like literally double their age almost.
Yeah.
And I was mostly able to keep up with them. Like, we did long ocean swims and I wasn't the fastest. We did a lot of runs. I wasn't the fastest, but I did my best to keep up. And I learned how to be in a tribe, in a group of guys, which was amazing. I learned to push my physical capabilities to extreme levels. And then when we did Kokoro camp, you're literally training 50 hours straight. And as Mark Commander Divine would say, you run into yourself for the first time. Because, after 20 hours of hard physical training, even after 5 hours of hard physical training, you're fucking exhausted. The SEALs are great at fucking with you. So you have these mind games going on. Like literally you have 2 SEALs give you 2 different directions. You're like, fuck, what do I do? Like you're screwed. And I can tell you a funny story along those lines, which screwed me, but it was a great test of where I was. So you learn mental toughness, you learn emotional resiliency, you learn what you're physically capable of, and you learn to take your eyes off yourself when you're suffering and help your teammate. And that was a great lesson over that whole month period of time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was cool.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. It really was cool.
So I've actually read Mark Divine's book.
Nice. Okay.
So you got to meet him, which is way cooler than reading his book. But
well, I also worked for him for a decade. A year after I finished all those programs, he called me up and was like, "Hey, I want to take what we did, but make a more civilian-oriented version of it. Because not everyone can take a month off. Not everyone's 21, going to buds, but we can train a lot of people." So I worked for him for a decade, building out programs, launching programs, running his mastermind. It was great. It was a great time. Yeah, he's a great dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty big shift that you went through.
All that was a huge shift. And then when Mark called me a year later and hired me to help him build and launch and run these companies or programs within his company, that was a major life altering and expansive experience too.
Yeah. Now you trained for 9 months to get ready for that. Doing what?
Man, everything. Like I'll walk you through Otis. So Otis, he was my Krav Maga instructor. So, but he's a former Army Special Forces. So I would literally get up like 5 o'clock in the morning. He was in a different state. So I'd get up really early. I'd stop by a grocery store, pick up steak, and then go to his house. And we would train 3 to 4 hours. Like literally, like we would go in the woods and do all kinds of, body weight / kettlebell type stuff in the woods, weight vests, all kinds of training, some Krav Maga training too, to really wear you out, some running, some sprinting, jump roping, a little bit of every kind of thing. And then I would go back to his house and I'd literally lay on this floor because I was so effing tired. Yeah. And he had the big screen TV and he'd turn on this, kick-ass war movie, whatever it is. And I'd literally fall asleep and he'd cook up the steaks. And then I'd have the steaks. I'm like, I feel good. And then I'd go home and work the rest of the day. I literally did it day in and day out with him. Well, probably about 3 or 4 days a week with him. And that was awesome. And probably 3 days a week with Otis. And the days I wasn't working with Otis, Dan Cirillo programmed me and he had me like on an hour and a half to 2 hours of training every day that I wasn't working with Otis. And that was a lot of CrossFit because he was a CrossFitter. So he had me on a lot of CrossFit training programs. And then a lot of rucking too. So I was a rucker at the time before it was kind of cool. Yeah.
Before it was cool.
Yeah.
And so, man, that's a lot of training.
It really was, but it was so much worth it. It was so fun. Yeah.
In all that training, in all of your martial arts, in all of your Zen studies, in all of your everything. I mean, everything you've done. What did you learn about persistence or resilience?
Man, Mark has this concept at SealFit called 20X, and the basic contention is we're we're able to do 20 times more than we think we can. And I would say that's completely true. Not only can we do 20 times more than we think we can, there's so many things we don't even think we can do that aren't even on our radar that we're capable of doing as human beings. Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, whatever I want to divide things up or even interpersonal. Our capacities are unlimited. The only limitations we have are kind of threefold: our mindset, our culture, which tells us you can't do that, and then some of our physiology. Because, if you're out of shape and you're laying on the couch all day long watching television, you're less likely to be able to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. You actually have to be physically capable of doing some of these things if it's physical. And even if it's not physical, it's still going to be physically capable and have good bodily health in order to do other things too. But like, our capacities of human beings are unlimited compared to what we imagine we're capable of doing. And I would say that's not just for the individual, but also in relationships. Like, I've seen couples who are on the verge of divorce, or armor. We talked about the armor. They take away their armor, open up the heart and reconnect in such a deep, loving way. It's like, wow, it's magic. Yeah. Like, that's available to everyone who wants to put in the time, effort, and do the work. I'm sure there's other limitations that I'm not familiar with, but like, for most people, if you do the work, you'll get the results.
Yeah, I spent years as a trainer, and that was basically my philosophy, was if you do the work, you get the results. Now, there are, like you said, there are certain cases that somebody might have underlying diseases or, whatever might be going on. But I think that's a pretty profound statement. You do the work, you get the result.
Yeah, and unfortunately here in the States, we're immediate gratification people. Like, we order from Amazon now and it shows up yesterday. Like, you're like, we need it now. And discipline is like almost like a 4-letter word unless you follow Jocko Willemick, and that's kind of cool. But like, there's a lot of people who don't want to put in the time and effort. They want the fix quick. They want the pill. They want the biohack. I love biohacking. You got to do the effing work. You got to work hard in order to be more loving, caring, compassionate, to be more self-regulated and self-mastered. Unless you're luckily born with all these capacities, which I've really never met anyone, like, you actually have to develop these things. Disciplines, like, you literally have to work on this every day of your life if you want to master these things in your life. Yeah.
And what do you think people could do to have more discipline?
So, a couple of different things. One is, what are the outcomes you want? You got to be really clear on the outcomes, and then you create a plan of action to reach those outcomes. And then you take that plan of action and you put it in your calendar. Like, hey, you want to, I'll just make this up. You want to lose 10, let's say you're 25% body fat. And you're like, oh my God, I want to be 15% body fat for whatever reason. Okay, cool. Like, okay, let's create a plan of action. Nutritionally, what are you going to do to lose some of the body fat, to change your metabolic system? Okay, cool. We can talk about keto, what carnivore, we can talk about stuff, but like, you need a plan of action. Are there any supplements that might be beneficial for you? Are there any peptides that might be beneficial? Okay, let's create that into the plan. Sleep. Well, you're not sleeping well. Your adrenaline or cortisol is jacked. You're not going to be able to lose the weight. Let's dial in your sleep. Are you actually moving your physical body? Like, you can't outrun a bad diet, but if you eat well and you exercise, put those two things together, and you sleep well and you deal with your stress, you're more likely to go from 25% body fat to 15% body fat. So, like, create a plan, throw it in your calendar, make sure you actually do it, and then tell every fucking person in your life that matters to you so they can help hold you accountable. And part of that too is like letting them know how you want to be held accountable. Like, some people like a drill sergeant friend. What the fuck are you doing? Like, come on, don't be such a effing F word, this, that, and the other. Don't be a ball sacker. Like, they like people yelling at them. Okay, cool. Like, some people get off on that, and like, that will help keep you accountable. Awesome. Some people, that turns them off, and like, oh, I don't want to be talked to that way. Okay,
Yeah.
Why do you want to be talked to? Slap me on the back and say, hey, what are you doing? Like, you're violating everything you've agreed to do that we talked about. Talk to me. Like, what can I do to support you? Cool. So you want to get some key people who are accountability partners. You want to let them know how you want to be held accountable. You have that conversation with them, agreements, they hold you accountable. You actually have the outcomes you want. You create a plan of action, and you implement the plan, and you throw it in your calendar. You make sure you do whatever the thing is on a daily basis. And you can do course corrections. Let's just say, rationally speaking, it's going to take 6 months to lose 10 pounds of body fat, or 10% of body, 10 10% body fat. Okay, so maybe in 3 months you course correct, you reevaluate, you get blood work, you find out what's going on, you do another DEXA scan. Oh my God, I've only lost this amount. Okay, maybe you need to rethink your diet, your peptides, your nutrition, your sleep, your fitness, what various factors that contribute to weight loss or fat loss, and readjust. But you're not readjusting every day. Maybe 3 of 6 months, maybe 6 of 1 year. You get the baseline, you do the testing, you readjust accordingly. But you have to have the outcome in mind. You got to plan an action. You got to put in your calendar. You got to do it on a daily basis. You want to have a couple of your buddies kicking your butt if you're not doing what you agreed to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna actually touch on our whole conversation. When you were 9 and you started getting into all this stuff, did you determine the outcome that you want for your life?
So I would say not professionally, but I had a general sense of how I wanted to feel inside. And I had glimpses of that when I do the meditation. I had a glimpse of it when I do the biofeedback, when I read about Zen. There was a really deep sense of inner peace that I was striving for because my nervous system was jacked because the learning disability in school was really hard, although I love to learn. My nervous system was jacked from the time I spent in the hospital, bad mindset. So like there were moments around that age where I had glimpses of the freedom that I wanted, the peace that I wanted,
Yeah.
the center, the calm, cool, connected space. So that was kind of a driver of continuing to do more and more and more. It didn't become a professional kind of exploration until much later.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
pretty big. That's a pretty big driver. And you talk about more and more and more. Now, my next question has to do with the more and more and more.
Okay.
What do you think about the pairing of focus going along with this?
What do you mean by focus?
So I'm a I am a victim of more and more and more leading to what a lot of people call shiny object syndrome.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And
Dolphins
so
or pearls or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, so while earlier in my life I was super disciplined. I mean, some people called me robotic. I was so disciplined, but I didn't have focus. I was in 9 different things, but I was disciplined in every single one of them. And
Nice.
so,
Okay.
the reason I ask is because you have a very diverse background, which I love. You know, you you have all of this under your belt. We always say like jack of all trades, master of
None.
none.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I like that statement, but I don't like that statement, right? Because I feel like you can do a bunch of things, but still master yourself. So
100% agree. Yeah.
and so instead of jack of all trades, master of none, it's like jack of all trades, master of self.
I like that. I'm stealing that actually. Yeah.
You can steal it. You can steal it.
I like it. I like that.
But and that's why I ask about focus is, when did you determine kind of your path that you set your focus on?
Yeah. So let me come from a different angle, if that's okay. I used to give a talk on ADD for children. And I would say, before you put your child on medication, look at these 9 possible avenues, explore them, and then take a decision what's best for your child. If you think medication is cool, I'm not the doctor, you decide with your doctor. And I would talk about diet, nutrition. I'll talk to them about use of the technology, cell phones and computers and iPads and TV watching. So I'd walk through various things for them to think about that, which might be contributing to challenges of focusing. And I bring that up because it goes to the physiological piece of my 4 pillars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I having challenges focusing? Is it because I like so many things? Maybe. Is it because my brain disorganized because of other inputs? Like I'm spending too much time on Instagram, or I'm not eating well, I'm not sleeping well. Like, all things being equal, let's just say I clean up my diet and I reduce my consumption of iPhone use or Instagram use. I'm sleeping better. I'm exercising and deal with my stress. And then I ask the question, okay, how am I doing? Oh, I can focus a lot more naturally because I don't have all these other things disrupting my system. So that's the first thing I'd ask. And then I had a great conversation with a client of mine years ago. He just had a baby a year ago at this moment. His wife was pregnant again, so he's about to have another baby. He traveled 3 weeks out of the month for work, just traveling all over the place. His testosterone was crap. His, like he's just body weight. He's gaining weight, fat, muscle. So his whole system was disrupted. And he's like, "Hey, Michael, I want to go get my graduate degree in X, Y, and Z." I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like your testosterone shit, your weight gain's high, you barely sleep now, you travel all the time. Like you really, some of this is my mind goes like, do you really want to do a graduate degree now? Like you're going to crash your system. You're already crashing your system. So I asked him this question. I said, how old do you want to be when you die? All things being equal and you have a quality of life. I think he said like 92. I was like, okay. And I think he was 32 at the time, maybe. I was like, so you're talking about 2 more lifetimes, double, triple, like 32 to 30 to 64 to 96, whatever. I say, assuming that technology improves over time, so like today's 90 is more like today's 60 because we'll be able to regenerate organs and
Yeah.
know more about biology and how to heal the system. Every decade we'll get better and better about that. So just imagine, like by the time you're 96 and you die naturally, you'll be cognitively capable and physically capable. Cool. I said, you already done one life, 2 kids, a great job, lots of fun travel. What would you want to do in your second part of your life? He's like, oh, well, if I have that many lifetimes, I can do my graduate work then. I don't have to do it all now. It's like, cool. So my point in telling you this long-winded story is like, if you shift your time horizons and start thinking differently, not just the day, not even a week, not even a month, maybe a season or half a year or a couple of years, it changes how you start thinking about things. And it allows you to decide what the priorities are now. Doesn't mean this isn't interesting to you, whatever this thing is, but maybe that's your thing next year, or maybe that's your thing in 5 years. And you can reevaluate in 6 months because maybe you finish this one thing and you want to move to the next thing. Cool. But like if you have a longer time horizon, like in America, we go by quarters.
Yeah.
If you don't raise enough money or you haven't earned enough money in your business, you're in trouble in the quarter.
Yeah.
Like you look at the Asians, they're like, yeah, we look at 50 years. Holy shit. We barely look a year down the road, let alone 50 years, different mindset. So like, if you can extend your time period and play with time in that space, figure out what your priorities are, it allows you to be more front side focused on what you need to accomplish. That's like one of the first things I'd recommend. And doesn't mean you don't do many different things. Like maybe you're a polymath and you're capable of, like, I run 4 companies at the same time because I'm Elon Musk. Cool. That works for you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hope he's sleeping and not using too much ketamine, but like, cool. That's awesome. If that works for you. But maybe you want to do one business at a time because that's better for your health and well-being and for your family life. Awesome. What works for you, knowing your system, all things being equal? Prioritize, organize your life accordingly, and along the way, check in and see where you're at, how you might want to do course corrections. And within that might be multiple different things. Are you capable of healthily doing that? It's a question I would ask you.
Yeah. And I
How's
think
that
it's
sound?
also, no, that's, yeah.
Okay.
You hit it right. You hit it the nail right on the head. And I think what you really hit on the head was looking at it. Every case is different, right? So I looked at the people who were saying I was unfocused, and at the time I was. But I look at it now, the same people who were saying maybe you should consolidate. I'm a guy who loves the chase. I love more and more, but achieving more and more, not just busy work, right? Um, through, we talked about Zen on our previous call, but reading a lot about Japanese philosophy and psychology and Kaizen, Ikigai, all that stuff. You talked about, they look at the timeline, they look at all this stuff through a bunch of different mindset shifts. I am a big fan of doing things that not only bring me joy, but bring me productivity and bring me finances or bring me results. And people look at my life now and they're like, dude, you have a podcast and you're writing 2 books and you're working a 9 to 5 and you're trying to become this content creator, full-time content creator, and you're doing all this stuff. Maybe you should just like focus on one thing. And I'm like, I think if I focused on one thing, I would get bored.
So you and I are very much alike because I work with individuals. I have a 6-month program. I work with couples. I have a 6-month program. I co-lead a men's group. I have a 6-month program. I run something called Team Foodishin, and I'm always looking for new adventures to jump into to support growth and development of human beings. And my question for myself is, am I able to accomplish my goals in those various domains? If I'm not, then I need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
Am I not using my energy well? Am I spread out too thin? But like you, if I am, my mind works really well that way. I like ecosystems, how things interrelate with one another. Cool. Keep doing that if that works for you. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, don't do that. Figure out another path for yourself. But it sounds like for you, that works for you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like I said, I'm constantly. I became obsessed at some point with personal development and self improvement. I'm a big fan of we're nowhere near our potential. And the only way to get close to your potential is to continuously improve in the four pillars that you talk about, right? Is the body, the mind, the spirit, the social, the environmental, all of those things play into you as a person. And you as a person plays into the world around you,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, I get
everybody, I feel like there's people go into, and this is what I'm getting out of your story, right? Is people go into life kind of thinking that the story is written for them when it's not, right? I mean, you have done all these things and you're still at a ripe young age of 29,
exactly.
but you've done all these things. Like anyone who would look at your story would be like, there's no way this guy did all this.
It's really funny because I do hear that a lot. Like, wait, you did that and that and that. How did you do all? I was like, yeah, I did them all in parallel while I was doing these other things too. Because
Yeah.
like you, Greg, I'm crazy. I like to do lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And like for me, I'll just share this little piece. Like I ended up getting trained as a personal protection specialist and a PI. Did some counterterrorism training, and got some training from some Mossad guys here in the States. Like, why the hell would you do that? Okay. I was doing national security policy. Part of national security policy was looking at civil liberties, the Patriot Act, as an example. And I'd be on the Hill, Capitol Hill, talking to staff and members of Congress. And I'm like, the Fourth Amendment, we need to protect the Fourth Amendment. Section 215, 505, 702 violates the Fourth Amendment, blah, blah, blah. Except for a few libertarians on the left or right. They're like, no, security. We got to be afraid of Al Qaeda. We'll give up our liberties for security. I'm like, well, shit. Well, my arguments in support of the Fourth Amendment aren't working, obviously, because they don't really care. They're too afraid to recognize the foundation of our great country, our liberties. So I wanted to understand from the security side of things how people think. So I did all this training, and I love the training because I love tactical training anyway. So I got to shoot guns and do a lot of more martial art training and learning cool stuff on counterterrorism. But I also did it because I'm like, I want to understand how people think on the security side. So when I talk to members of Congress or their staff, I can argue not from the Fourth Amendment because some of them don't really care, but I can argue like, if you actually want to improve security, these measures don't improve security. Let me explain why they don't. Not because they violate the Fourth Amendment, because they actually make law enforcement work much more difficult. They make it easier for terrorists to do it this way, whatever the thing was. And so I was like, well, I need to learn how to talk their language. So I did all the training. But people are like, wait, you became a PI and a PPS and did counterterrorism training while also full-time as a coach, therapist, and national security policy? Yeah, because that's, like you, that's what we do.
Yeah.
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 We follow our nose. Like, that's interesting. I want to go learn that.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't? And
Well,
I
I agree.
remember when I was 22,
Okay.
and I had told somebody, I'm a big traveler,
Nice.
right?
Okay.
I had told somebody I had been to all the lower 48 states in the U.S. by car at the age of 22.
Wow, that's impressive.
And he was like, there's no way. He was in his 40s. Yeah, in his 40s. He was like, I've been to like 3.
Oh, Jesus. Double your age too. Yeah.
I look back on that, and I look at everything you've done. It wasn't until now. It was actually until last week until I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to travel. I want to figure out how to get paid to travel. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. But I hear your story, and it inspires people.
I hope
Because
so.
well, because it seems like, and this is coming from my, outsider perspective, just hearing your story for the second time, but you've done what you want. You felt something deep down, and you were like, I'm gonna go do this, and then you just went after
Yeah.
it, right? And so in all those experiences, in all of those things, and this is my final question for you, the theme of the show.
Okay.
What is something? What is an experience or a lesson? What is something you wish you would have learned earlier in life?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I'll kind of recapitulate what you and I talked about offline a little bit. So I've been fortunate to be very confident in certain circumstances and situations. Even when I was a kid, I won't go into the details, but I took on the educational establishment. Thank God I had supported my parents. But I didn't say, I did my best to protect myself against both the medical establishment and against the school establishment. And lots of fights from little kid to college and university time or graduate time. Cool. Confidence to protect myself in those situations as best as I could. Not always that easy when you're 5, 7, or 9, but I did the best I could. Where I lacked confidence was in the relationship space. So I would say retrospectively, because of the lack of confidence or lack of self-esteem, I made poor choices for myself along the way with some of the women I dated longer term than others. And I wish I had, and wish, like, you learn your lessons, if you don't go
Yep.
through these things, they make you who you are. So like, yeah, well, wish what? Who really cares? It makes you who you are. Cool, I get that. And like, it's not my finger, which would then change who the hell I am. If I went back and I was like, if I had made better decisions with women, been more confident with them, that whole part of my life would have been much different. It more reflected the way I live my life in other areas, which was much more confident, much more able to stand up for self, have much clearer boundaries, fight for myself, and things like that. But like I said, if I had done that, then you and I wouldn't be having these conversations because I wouldn't be the same person I am today as a result of learning lessons from not doing that when I was a kid or a young adult or a younger person. Yeah.
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 And it's flip flop, vice versa. We wouldn't have this conversation because I probably wouldn't have gone through what I went through, you know, and then started this podcast. You
Exactly.
say wish. You're actually the first person to be like, you can't, can't go back, but it makes you who you are. I've asked a lot of people this question. Nobody's ever said that. And I think about it all the time. I'm like, I'm asking the people this question, but like nobody's ever said like, oh, I don't really have any regrets, or I don't really wish I could have done anything different because I am where, I am who I am. I'm where I'm at. And that's a really interesting perspective because it does make you who you are, right? What you
Yeah.
went through,
All the
you
formative
know,
experiences. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, what you went through made you who you are today, which pushed you maybe to overcome adversity in that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're running low on time, but I had certain deaths of family members in my life, which were horrific and like horrible things that occurred, friends and family members. And I'm like, I wish they hadn't died, but because they had died, this is what happened in my life. I am who I am as a result of all the work I had to do to work through their
Yeah.
murder or suicide or death, whatever the situation might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, like contract, like the cosmic bar, we haven't been incarnated yet. Like, who wants to play what role in our lives? And you get to do this and I get to do that. Oh, you get to do that role with me? That sucks for you, but okay, let's do it. Like, and then we incarnate, we pretend like, oh, this is real, and we live our lives like, But if you hold that kind of lightly and like, man, we're just kind of incarnating to play some soul craft that we have to do in order to learn some lessons. And some of these lessons effing suck. Some of
Yeah.
them are great, but just kind of go through life realizing lessons along the way. This is happening for us, not to us. It's a whole different mindset.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really good answer. Well, Michael, do you have anything else you want to tell the audience before we wrap up here today?
One last thing. We live in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. There's a lot of challenges going on in the world today, but economic, financial, political, cultural, geopolitical. Kindness. We could do much better with each other if we're much more kind to each other. So it doesn't matter if someone has a different ideology than you or political stance than you. They're a human being. And if we could just be a little bit kinder to each other, we'd have a much better world. And we'd be able to deal with some of the challenges we face. Yeah.
Kindness. Man, we could have a whole other episode on kindness.
Cool. I'm back. Just invite me.
All right. All right. For everybody listening, I'm going to put all of Michael's information in the show notes. So you guys can hit him up on social media. You can check him out. You can go seal fit train with him if you would like. I know he'd probably be down for that. Everybody listening, Michael was a great guest. I'm really glad we could do this because this has been awesome.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate having me on and enjoyed your questions.
Thank you. Everybody listening, I want you to keep smiling. I want you to keep striving, and I will catch you guys in the next one.